Hi, everybody. My name is Katy Hittle. I am an extension educator in Woods County. I am an agriculture 4 H educator. And for my cohort project, I did a cedar rodeo, is what we called the program. And so the entire title was Woods County Cedar Rodeo, since that is the county I serve. So, a little bit of the background on my program specifically. I wanted to focus on cedars and cedar encroachment, which we're talking about eastern red cedar for this specifically. So I wanted to focus on that cedar encroachment, and that's a pretty big issue in my county that I am in, as well as kind of the whole area of Northwest Oklahoma. And so a little bit of that background, we're like I've got written here, we are more prone to wildfires. When I moved out here a couple years ago, we have wildfire season versus other parts of the state. They have tornado season, which is where I grew up and what I was used to. And so when we have those wildfires, cedars are basically just completely full of fuel, and so they basically just explode, and they'll shoot flames and embers extremely far, which makes those fires even harder to fight and get control of when we do have wildfires break out. So that's an important issue, I would say, and something that we covered is the wildfire aspect of these cedars. And then beyond that, and a lot of what we talked about during the program itself, is the encroachment for one, and then also the issues that it causes to our land, our landowners, our ranching operations, farming operations, really anybody that faces this issue. They pull an enormous amount of groundwater. They are pretty much canopies, so there's no grass. For the most part, there's no grass that grows underneath these cedars. And like I said, they're extremely flammable. So they're taking groundwater from your ground, from your grass, from your cattle, your livestock. They're pulling water away from all of those things, as well as the canopy that they have. So they're also taking away grazing land and that other roughage or grass that livestock could be getting if it were not for that cedar encroachment and coverage. So there's a lot of aspects of the cedars that we wanted to kind of cover, but I wanted everyone to have a decent background on the cedars themselves before we got into the rest of the program, if they were not already aware. Some goals of this program. So I wanted to address the encroachment. I wanted to talk kind of background, so why and how that these cedars were harmful, and kind of why it matters to you, whether you're ranching, whether you're just a landowner and you just hunt that property, which is extremely common in my county. I think we actually looked up the other day, and hunting property is the highest in the whole U.S. in my county. I believe that's what we read yesterday. So that's a huge one. Huge one in my county is just hunting land that has a lot of encroachment on it. So whether you're ranching or you're farming or you're just hunting, or you just have land, you're just a landowner, recreationally, whatever that might look like for you. As well as just homeowners, understanding how flammable those cedars are, and if those are right up against your house as a windbreak, there's risk to that. So we wanted everyone to understand kind of the why and how and the background of these cedars. And the biggest thing for me, almost by far, is I wanted actionable next steps. When they left my program, I wanted them to be able to go home and do something or know exactly who to call to get something done. Maybe they want to go a mechanical option and they don't have that equipment, but I wanted them to have the number to call to schedule somebody to come do it for them if that's not what they wanted to do. Or if they want to burn, I wanted them to know exactly who to call or know exactly, okay, I need to write a burn plan. Whatever that looked like for them, that was my biggest thing. I didn't want them leaving thinking, well, now what? I wanted them to be able to go home and do something about their cedars. So also, I wanted to ensure the coverage. We really wanted to cover prescribed fire, mechanical and chemical control, and I wanted to do that through a field portion or a pasture portion. So I wanted, kind of infield, hands-on demonstration that was really interactive and they could see exactly what we were talking about. So I wanted that to happen, and I wanted to cover cost shares. So there is an incentive to take care of these cedars for almost anybody. So preparation. I put the date up here in the corner because I decided I was going to do a cedar rodeo in June while we were in Nebraska at the cohort, but then preparation really kind of started in October. And so from October of 25 to April of 26, Dr. Laura Goodman helped me with this a ton. So when I say we, that's kind of who I'm referring to. But I did a lot of prep on this. We had to decide, what do we want the day to look like? What do we want to focus on? What topics for sure do we need to cover? What topics can we leave off? We needed to choose a date and a location. So date also kind of includes time of year. Do I want this a spring program? Do I want this a summer program? Do I want this a fall program? XYZ. I wanted a burn at my program, so I need to make sure it's a time of year that's conducive to burning. So date, location. Location also includes the pasture, as well as I specifically did an inside portion and a pasture portion. So I need to make sure I've got both locations, make sure I can have both locations on the same date. They need to be close together for people to drive place to place. We went out and scouted the pasture. That was Dr. Goodman, John Weir, myself, and some grad students, as well as the landowner that was willing to let us use his pasture. So we went to scout to make sure there was enough cedars to do our chemical, mechanical burn, and make sure it was a easily accessible pasture so that people could get there. Maybe if they were in a smaller vehicle, they could get there easily. So that worked out well for us, and I can get into that later. But also part of, so scheduling speakers, presenters, getting people there with equipment to demo, that's all part of this prep work. And it really takes a while to get that many people on the same page, on the same date, and ready for, because this is pretty much an all-day program. Also, I worked with our PBA and landowners. We'll also get into this a little bit later, but ideally you want to work with your PBA and your landowner, get that burn plan ready. If burning is something you want to do, that takes prep. Get the burn plan done, get your fire breaks done, get ahead of that. And so you're not the week before thinking, dang, that is next week. We don't have our fire breaks ready. So get that prep done ahead of time for sure. I specifically got a sponsorship for my meal, thankfully. There's no way I could have done a meal without sponsorship, and luckily I got a sponsorship to cover the whole meal, which I was incredibly grateful for. And it's a great group for that I have been able to work with, and they're very supportive of my programming and extension. And so I was very lucky for that. If you don't have that, you could get a couple different sponsorships of smaller amounts, but I got $1,200 and used every bit of it on my meal. So get the agenda made, prep the pasture. So that kind of prep, I mean, getting it mowed so people can park and walk. We mowed through some of the cedars that we put chemical on so they could easily walk through and see browning of needles, get up close to the trees. But there was a lot of prep that way to making sure people could easily get there, they could easily park, and they could easily walk around. So a little bit of preparation in detail. Like I said, and I put dates up here as well. So, like I said, we decided the Cedar Rodeo was what I wanted to do while we were in Nebraska on the cohort, and that was in June. And then we left it alone for just a little bit, and then in October, we had Dr. Goodman and I had our first Zoom to kind of start all of this prep that we have been talking about. John and Laura came out in November to scout the field, meet with the landowner, put chemical down on trees. Those happened the same day. I just put them on 2 bullet points because it was too long for one line. But anyway, those happened the same day. So we scouted the field. It was going to work. We put chemical down. And then I actually was at a conference with Dr. Goodman in January, or else we probably would have Zoomed again, but we just had an in-person prep meeting while we were at conference in January, Zoomed again in February to continue that prep, start working on agenda, different things like that. And then we Zoomed in March twice. We Zoomed the beginning of March and the end of March, once we had the RSVP deadline finished. So we had an idea of how many people we were going to have, and we could really make sure all of our ducks were in a row. So that last Zoom was just the week before my program. So lots of prep, I would say, that goes into it. There maybe doesn't have to be, but for me, it makes me feel better, and I want to make sure I have triple checked everything. And hindsight, I had 60 some people there, and so I really don't want to show up day of with 60 some people there ready for this program and I've forgotten something. I do not want that to happen. Things happen and we can pivot, but I don't want it to be something that we were just not prepared for and we did not have our preparation done. I didn't want that to happen. So lots of prep for me specifically. It makes me feel better. I need to, feel ready, make sure I've got all my speakers, I've got all my equipment, I've got my meal finalized, done, ready. I've got the building ready, tables, chairs, make sure we have enough, XYZ. So lots of prep. Each person I'm sure is different. You could get closer to and just really cram it out, but this is what I did and this is what worked for me. So the inside portion. Okay, so the program itself, at the beginning, it was just going to be a field day, pasture tour day. But when we started our prep, we kind of decided that might be difficult because of the length of the program being outside the whole entire time. So I split it up half inside and half outside. And a main reason for that was restrooms and lunch. So I did not want to deal with getting porta potties out to the pasture, and I didn't just love trying to get our caterer out to the pasture with boxed lunches and ice chests of water and going that route. So we just went inside for the morning. We kind of went through our history and information of cedars. We talked about prescribed fire, PBAs. We talked about the mechanical options, chemical options, cost share programs, and we obviously ate lunch. And we had time for everyone to go to the bathroom and get a drink, do whatever they needed to do before we headed to the pasture. So that's just what worked for me. So we started at 10 a.m., I believe. I meant to add a picture of my agenda to this, and I just now realized I forgot. But anyway, I believe we started at 10, ate lunch at noon, and then we were to the pasture by around 1 o'clock, and it was only a 10-minute drive from my inside portion to my pasture, so it all worked well. But we got a lot done inside, kind of everything, talked through everything inside, and all of our handouts we got inside. So, and especially out here, if it's windy, we don't have to worry about them losing their handouts while we're in the pasture. So we got quite a bit done inside. I included these pictures. Hopefully you can see my mouse here. But this was kind of the group we were working with. There was 60 some people. John was talking about PBAs here. And then I just thought this picture was really cute. This is Katy Blanc. She's actually the president of one of our PBAs in Woods County, the Freedom PBA. She kind of mans at the moment. And so she was a huge part of our program as well, and her support and the PBA support as well as Comanche Pool Prairie Resource Foundation. And then this is Dr. Goodman. So this is who I've been talking about. I had so much prep with her, and she helped me with this immensely. But I wanted to include this picture because this was kind of our setup. So we were not in a building that had any technology. So I brought a kind of pop-up screen and a projector, and this was just kind of what we were working with for the day. And that's just what it looked like for us. Ideally, we would probably have a little bit bigger screen, but with the way the tables were set up, they could see fine. So then we get into the pasture portion, which is always the fun part outside of lunch. Everyone likes to eat, but I included these pictures. So the pasture portion, we talked through our chemical. Like I said, we put that chemical down in November. So we talked through chemical. One of John's grad students actually talked through the chemical. It was kind of more his project, I believe. That's what this picture is. When we put chemical down, we put tags on each tree that we did application on so that we could remember which trees were treated and which ones were not. So we talked through chemical, and then we discussed the mechanical, and then they went and demoed the mechanical. So this is called a plowboy. This is a piece of equipment they build about an hour from where I'm located. So he came up and demoed his equipment and kind of talked about purchasing it, renting it, what that looked like. So that was something that people, kind of an actionable step. Hey, I like that. I can call him and buy one, or I can rent one for 30 days, whatever that looked like. John was talking through some PBA stuff, some burning stuff right here specifically. And then this was our mulcher. We actually have a cedar technician office in the town where we did the program. So he brought some of his equipment, and that was the mulcher. And then this was a Marshall saw that we demoed. And this was actually our landowner that was gracious enough to host us. This is just a picture of where we were. So I just added this in just so you can see this encroachment. So, I mean, you can see all of these cedars through here, and especially like on these hillsides. And I mean, you can see all the way back here, even, but especially right through here, how thick that is. And I mean, just think of if you cleared all of these off, how much more grazing ground that you would have. I just think this is a neat picture. So, just an example of the encroachment. Just some more pictures. I love pictures, and we had our OSU photographer there, and I think he did a great job, so I want to highlight them. This was one of the fire rigs that we brought and kind of talked through. We unfortunately did not get to burn. It was a little windy, but we just were not as prepared as we needed to be. And so that's why I talk about really having your prep done ahead of time and not letting it sneak up on you. So we didn't get to burn, unfortunately, but this is one of the fire rigs, and we talked about prescribed burn, and we talked about burn plans, and we talked through equipment and manpower that you will need when you do burn. And that's the Marshall saw. We kind of looked at it and did it slow, how it works, how the blade turns. Same thing here. That's the Plowboy that I talked about. These are both the Marshall saw. And then this is the mulcher. So that's the mulcher, and you can see the tree here. So that was what he was mulching. And then you can see, like this is exactly where it was, and it's gone. And they're kind of farther back pictures because that mulch will spray pretty far, and so we didn't want anyone too close. But I mean, that was down to nothing in, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. So I think that's kind of a neat triage of pictures. I have talked for way longer than I thought I was going to, but this is my email and phone number. If anyone is interested or wants more detail, feel free, email me, call me, whatever works. I'm more than happy to help. Not that I have any of it figured out by any means, but I think we had a really good day. We had a really good program, and everybody learned a lot. So if I can share any of my experiences or what I learned throughout the day, I'm more than happy to help you with a successful program for yourself. I'm sure I've forgotten quite a bit, but we're already at 23 minutes, so I will go ahead and end this.